Lee Marvin was one of the toughest men who ever walked through Hollywood, a real warrior who had seen actual combat, a man who carried shrapnel in his body for the rest of his life from a bullet that nearly killed him in World War II. He played tough guys on screen because he was a tough guy in real life, hard and dangerous and unpredictable. But there was one person Lee Marvin truly hated with a passion that burned from the 1960s until the day he died in 1987. One man who made his blood boil every time he heard his name. One Hollywood legend who Marvin considered the biggest fraud who ever lived. And when you hear the name, you will gasp because this person was the biggest cowboy star in Hollywood history. The man America loved as the symbol of strength and patriotism, and everything a real man should be. But we will get to the name soon. First, you need to understand why the hatred ran so deep. Before we dive into video, please subscribe to our channel. Before you understand the hatred, you need to understand who Lee Marvin was. Not the tough guy in the movies, the real man behind the hard face and the cold eyes. Lee Marvin was born in 1924 in New York City. His father was an advertising executive. His mother came from a wealthy family. Lee grew up with privilege and comfort. He went to good schools. He had every advantage a young man could want, but something inside him was wild and untamable. He got kicked out of dozens of schools for fighting and drinking and refusing to follow rules. His parents did not know what to do with him. He was a problem child who seemed destined for trouble. Then came World War II and everything changed. Lee Marvin enlisted in the United States Marine Corps in 1942. He was 18 years old. He did not have to go. He could have gotten a deferment because of his family connections. Rich kids found ways to avoid the war all the time. But Marvin wanted to fight. He wanted to prove himself. He wanted to see combat. He got his wish in the worst possible way. Marvin was sent to the Pacific Theater. He fought in some of the bloodiest battles of the entire war. Saipan, Kwajalein, places where thousands of young men died in the jungle and on the beaches. Places where the fighting was so brutal that men who survived never fully recovered. On June 18, 1944, Lee Marvin was shot by a Japanese sniper during the Battle of Saipan. The bullet hit him in the buttocks and severed his sciatic nerve. He nearly died from blood loss right there on the beach. He spent over a year in military hospitals recovering. The doctors told him he would never walk properly again. They said the damage was too severe. He proved them wrong through sheer determination and willpower. But he carried that shrapnel in his body for the next 43 years. Every single day of his life he felt pain from that wound. Every day he was reminded of what real combat felt like, what real fear felt like, what real courage actually meant. Not the movie version. The real version where men screamed for their mothers while dying in the mud. After the war, Marvin drifted for a while. He tried different jobs. Nothing stuck. He was restless and angry and did not know what to do with himself. Then he stumbled into acting almost by accident. Someone suggested he try community theater. He discovered he had a natural talent for it. He moved to Hollywood in the early 1950s, started getting small roles, villains mostly, bad guys and thugs and criminals. His face was perfect for it, hard and weathered and dangerous looking. The face of a man who had seen terrible things and survived. By the late 1950s, he was getting bigger parts. By the 1960s, he was a legitimate star. Lee Marvin became famous playing a different kind of tough guy than Hollywood had seen before. Not the noble hero, not the white-hat cowboy who never missed a shot. He played criminals and killers and men pushed to the edge of sanity. He brought real darkness to his roles, real violence, real unpredictability, because he knew what real violence looked like. He had seen men die in combat. He had killed enemy soldiers himself. He knew that violence was not clean or heroic or exciting. It was ugly and brutal, and it left scars that never healed. Physical scars and mental scars that stayed with you forever. This authenticity made Marvin different from other Hollywood tough guys. He was not pretending. He was not acting tough. He actually was tough in ways most actors could never understand. And this brings us to the man he hated. The man who represented everything Marvin despised about Hollywood. The man who built a career playing heroes and soldiers without ever having been one. The man Lee Marvin hated more than anyone was John Wayne. Yes, John Wayne, the Duke, the biggest cowboy star in Hollywood history, the face of American masculinity for 3 decades, the man who played soldiers and warriors and patriots in dozens of films, the man America trusted and loved and looked up to as a symbol of what made America great. Lee Marvin hated John Wayne with a burning passion that never went away, and the reason for that hatred was simple and brutal. John Wayne was a fraud. A man who played a warrior but had never been one. A man who made millions pretending to be brave while braver men died for real. Let me explain why this mattered so much to Lee Marvin. John Wayne was born Marion Morrison in 1907. He grew up in California. He played football in high school and college. He drifted into movies in the late 1920s as a prop man and extra. A famous director named John Ford took an interest in him, changed his name from Marion Morrison to John Wayne, made him a star in Western films. By the 1940s, Wayne was the biggest Western star in Hollywood. By the 1950s, he was an American icon, the Duke, the symbol of American masculinity and strength and courage. But here is the thing that ate at Lee Marvin every single day. The thing that made him furious every time he saw John Wayne on screen or heard his name mentioned. John Wayne never served in World War II. Never wore a uniform except in movies. Never saw combat. Never heard bullets flying past his head. Never watched his friends die. Never risked his life for his country, not once, not ever. When the war started in 1941, Wayne was 34 years old. He was married with 4 children. He could have gotten a legitimate deferment based on his family situation. Many men did, but here is what made it worse. Wayne could have enlisted anyway if he really wanted to serve. Many married men with children did exactly that. Jimmy Stewart did. He flew bombing missions over Germany. Clark Gable did. He flew combat missions even though he was in his 40s. Henry Fonda did. He served in the Navy in the Pacific. These were major stars who put their careers on hold and went to war because they felt it was their duty. John Wayne did not go. He requested a deferment. He claimed he needed to stay home to support his family. But the real reason everyone in Hollywood knew was different. He did not want to risk his rising career. He was becoming a huge star. Leaving for 3 or 4 years might destroy all his momentum. Someone else might take his place. He might lose his spot at the top. So he stayed in Hollywood making war movies and propaganda films while real men like Lee Marvin were dying on beaches in the Pacific. This fact created a hatred in Lee Marvin that never went away, not ever. He watched John Wayne play heroes and soldiers in movies throughout the 1940s and 1950s, watched him wave the American flag and talk about patriotism and duty, watched America worship him as a symbol of military strength and courage. And it made Marvin physically sick to his stomach, because Marvin knew the truth. John Wayne was a fake. A man who talked about courage but had never shown it when it actually mattered. A man who made millions playing brave while braver men died for nothing. The first time Lee Marvin met John Wayne was at a Hollywood party in 1958. Marvin was still a supporting actor at that point, not yet a major star. Wayne was at the absolute peak of his fame and power. The biggest star in Hollywood. Someone at the party introduced them. Wayne shook Marvin's hand with that famous John Wayne grip. Strong and firm, he said he had seen some of Marvin work, said Marvin was very good at playing heavies and bad guys. Marvin looked Wayne directly in the eye and said something that shocked everyone standing nearby. He said, "I play heavies because I know what real violence looks like. Not movie violence, real violence. The kind that leaves you bleeding in the dirt." Wayne's face changed immediately. The smile disappeared. He understood the insult, understood exactly what Marvin was saying. There was a long, uncomfortable silence while the 2 men stared at each other. Then Wayne smiled that famous John Wayne smile and walked away without another word. But people who were there said Wayne's face was red with anger. His jaw was clenched. Marvin had challenged him publicly, had questioned his manhood and his credentials in front of other people. Wayne never forgot it. Neither did Marvin. That moment started a feud that would last until Wayne died 21 years later. Throughout the 1960s, both men were at the top of their careers. Wayne was making big-budget westerns and war movies. Marvin was making grittier, more violent films that represented a new kind of Hollywood, a darker Hollywood that showed violence as ugly instead of heroic. In 1965, Marvin won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his dual role in Cat Ballou. He played a drunk, washed-up gunfighter and his evil twin brother. It was partly a comedic role, but Marvin brought real depth and sadness to it. When he won the Oscar, he gave a speech that barely mentioned the movie at all. Instead, he talked about the men he had served with in World War II, the men who did not come home from Saipan and Kwajalein, the men who died on beaches while they were still teenagers. He dedicated the award to them, to the real heroes who never got recognition or fame or awards. People in the audience understood exactly who he was really talking to. He was drawing a line between himself and actors who had never served. Actors like John Wayne, who played soldiers but had never been one. Wayne was in the audience that night. His face was like stone. He did not smile. He did not applaud when Marvin won. He just sat there with his arms crossed, looking angry. After the Oscar ceremony, there was a big party. Marvin had been drinking heavily. He was always a heavy drinker. The alcohol made him brave and reckless. Someone at the party told him that Wayne had said something dismissive about his Oscar win, had said that Cat Ballou was not a serious film, that Marvin won because Hollywood was changing and not for the better, that the Academy was rewarding the wrong kind of performances now. Marvin went looking for Wayne at the party. He was angry and drunk and ready for confrontation. He found Wayne talking to a group of admirers and hangers-on. Marvin walked right up to him and got in his face. According to multiple people who witnessed what happened next, Marvin said, "John, you would not know a serious film if it shot you in the ass. But you would not know about getting shot, would you? Because you never served, you never fought, you never did anything except play dress-up while real men died." Wayne tried to walk away, but Marvin followed him, kept talking, kept pushing. Said Wayne had no right to judge anyone courage or anyone work because Wayne was a coward who hid in Hollywood while a war was being fought. Finally, Wayne's security people and friends separated them before it turned physical. Wayne left the party immediately. He was furious and humiliated. Marvin stayed at the party and kept drinking and kept telling anyone who would listen that John Wayne was a fraud and a coward and a fake tough guy. The story spread through Hollywood like wildfire. By the next morning, everyone in the industry knew about it. People took sides. Some thought Marvin was completely out of line, that what Wayne did or did not do during the war was his own business. Others quietly agreed with Marvin. Thought Wayne's patriotic image was hypocritical given that he had avoided service when other stars had not. The feud became one of those open secrets that everyone in Hollywood knew about but nobody talked about publicly. It was too controversial, too potentially damaging to both men. But privately, the hatred continued to grow. The political divide between them made things even worse. By the late 1960s, America was tearing itself apart over the Vietnam War. John Wayne was one of the most vocal supporters of the war. He believed in it completely. He even made a movie called The Green Berets in 1968 that was pure pro-war propaganda. Wayne believed in America, right or wrong, believed in military strength, believed that protesters were cowards and traitors who did not understand what was at stake. Lee Marvin thought the Vietnam War was a complete disaster. He never said so publicly very often because he was not a particularly political person. But in private, he told friends that Vietnam was nothing like World War II. That World War II had a clear purpose and a clear enemy. That Vietnam was a confused mess that was killing young men for no good reason. And he especially hated that John Wayne was cheerleading for a war that Wayne himself had never experienced. That Wayne was sending other people's children to die, while his own children stayed safe at home. In 1969, John Wayne finally won his only Academy Award for True Grit. He played Rooster Cogburn, an old one-eyed marshal who helps a young girl get revenge. It was a good performance, but it was also a sentimental win. Hollywood giving the Duke his due after decades of stardom. When Wayne gave his acceptance speech, he thanked America and the troops fighting in Vietnam. He talked about how proud he was to be an American, how proud he was of the military, Lee Marvin watched the ceremony on television at his home. According to his wife, Betty, he threw a glass at the TV screen when Wayne started talking about the troops. He was absolutely furious that Wayne had won an Oscar for playing another fake tough guy, another role that required no real understanding of violence or courage or what war actually does to men. Marvin told his wife that giving John Wayne an Oscar for playing a soldier was like giving a participation trophy to someone who never showed up. The hatred continued through the 1970s without any sign of cooling. Both men were getting older now. Wayne was fighting cancer. Marvin was fighting alcoholism that was destroying his health and his career. They moved in completely different circles by this point. Wayne hung out with conservative politicians and old Hollywood royalty, people like Ronald Reagan and Bob Hope. Marvin hung out with newer actors and directors who represented the grittier, more realistic side of film, people like Sam Peckinpah and John Borman. But whenever their paths crossed at industry events, the tension was painfully obvious to everyone around them. In 1976, there was an American Film Institute tribute to John Wayne. It was a massive event. Every major star in Hollywood attended. It was a celebration of Wayne's 50-year career. Lee Marvin was invited because he was one of the biggest stars of his generation. He did not want to go. He told his agent he would rather stay home and drink. But his agent convinced him it would be bad for his career to skip it, that people would ask questions, that it would seem petty and small. So Marvin attended, but he made his feelings clear. He sat in the back row, as far from the stage as possible. When John Wayne came out on stage to a standing ovation, everyone in the theater stood and applauded. Everyone except Lee Marvin. He stayed seated with his arms crossed. Several people sitting near him noticed. Some were shocked. Some understood exactly what he was doing and why. After the tribute, there was a big reception with food and drinks. Marvin avoided Wayne completely, stayed on the opposite side of the room, but at one point they ended up near each other at the bar. Wayne was surrounded by admirers and people wanting to shake his hand. Marvin was standing alone with a drink. Wayne saw him and decided to say something, maybe to smooth things over, maybe to prove he was the bigger man. He said, "Lee, I am glad you could make it tonight. It means a lot." Marvin did not respond at first, just stared at his drink. Wayne said it louder so people could hear. "Lee, I said I am glad you came tonight." Marvin finally looked at him with cold eyes. He said, "I came for the free drinks, John, not for you." Then he turned and walked away. That was the last time the two men ever spoke to each other. John Wayne died in June 1979 from stomach cancer. He was 72 years old. America went into mourning. The president gave a statement. Flags flew at half-mast in California. Hollywood treated it like the death of royalty. There were tributes and retrospectives and everyone talking about what a legend he was. Lee Marvin did not attend the funeral, did not send flowers, did not issue any kind of statement, just complete silence. When reporters asked why he had not attended, Marvin publicist gave a vague answer about scheduling conflicts. But people close to Marvin knew the real truth. He had refused to honor a man he considered a fraud. A man who had built an entire career playing heroes while real heroes died in wars Wayne had avoided. Marvin told his wife privately that he felt absolutely nothing about Wayne's death. No sadness, no regret, nothing, just indifference. Years later in the 1980s, interviewers would sometimes ask Lee Marvin about John Wayne, about whether he had any thoughts on the Duke legacy, about their rumored feud. Marvin would usually dodge the question politely, would say something diplomatic about Wayne being a big star. But once in 1986, a reporter pushed him harder, asked him directly if it was true he had hated Wayne. Marvin was old by then. He was sick. He had less than a year left to live. He looked at the reporter for a long moment and then said, "Yes, I hated him. I hated what he represented. He made millions playing soldier while real soldiers died. He waved the flag but would not serve under it when it mattered. That is not a man. That is just an actor, and America could not tell the difference." The interview was never published. The reporter decided it was too controversial, too bitter. It would damage Marvin's reputation and legacy. But the reporter kept the tape recording. After Marvin died in August 1987, from a heart attack. The tape was found in the reporter's personal archives. It confirmed what people in Hollywood had suspected for decades. Lee Marvin truly hated John Wayne with a passion that never dimmed or faded. Lee Marvin truly hated John Wayne more than anyone in Hollywood. He hated him for 40 years without ever letting it go. From the first time they met in 1958 until the day Wayne died in 1979. And even after death, Marvin would not forgive him, would not honor him, would not pretend the hatred had never existed. Because for Lee Marvin, some things could not be forgiven. Playing soldier while real soldiers died was one of them. Borrowed valor was unforgivable. John Wayne represented everything Marvin despised about Hollywood: the fake heroism, the confusion of image with reality, the worship of men who had never earned it. And Marvin made sure that anyone who really knew him understood exactly how he felt about it. The hatred was real, it was deep, and it lasted forever until both men were dead and gone.